Hi, it's Professor Monty. Let's look at a couple of applications of linear functions. All right, the first one says to rent a truck, it costs $20 plus 15 cents per mile. Find a formula for the cost C of M to drive M miles, and then how many miles can you drive for $36.50? Okay, so we're going to start off the cost C of M. So this is problem one. So my total cost $20 plus, just like it says, 15 cents per mile. So we're going to do the 15 cents, but it's per mile, so it's 15 cents every mile. So we have to multiply that by our number of miles. So it's 20 plus 0.15 times M. That's my function. That's going to give me the total cost for any M value I plug in. So if they say, hey, what's the cost for 100 miles? You just plug 100 in for M and you just do the arithmetic. But they say, how many miles can you drive for $36.50? We don't know M. We're trying to find M. But we know the total cost is $36.50. So we put the $36.50 in the function value, the cost function, and it's 20 plus 0.15 M, and then it leaves me with an algebra problem. So then we just solve that as we normally would. Let's subtract 20 from both sides. Notice I get 1650 is equal to 0.15 M. So once we take out the $20 for renting the truck, this 1650 is the mileage charge. Well, and then that's multiplied by M, so we're just going to divide that on both sides. 0.15. I'm going to grab my calculator real quick, and I'm going to get M is 1650 divided by 0.15. I get 110 miles. So it's 110 miles. As always with applications and with word problems, you should put your units down and then make sure it makes sense. So we know, for instance, if I did 100 miles, it'd be $15. I just moved the decimal twice. 15 plus 20 would be 35. It should be a little over 35 because I did a little more than 100 miles. So the $36.50 seems reasonable. So always check your answer for reasonableness. All right, let's look at problem number 2. Let me erase this real quick so we have plenty of room. All right. It says that 50 tacos can be sold at $4 each, and 120 tacos can be sold at $2 each. Find a function, a linear function in this case, for the number of tacos that can be sold at D dollars each. Okay, so notice the function number of tacos at D dollars. Since that's number of tacos, that's my function, that's my Y value. Remember, the Y value is always the function value. The input value, dollars, that's going to be my X. So the number of dollars is going to be X. Let's just say X equals number of dollars. Let's just say dollars. And then we'll call the number of dollars. That would be number. Okay. So it's always going to be dollars and then number of tacos. That's what we're looking for. So we can set that up because this was my function. All right, so if I look and I say, okay, 50 tacos, that's my number of tacos, so that's going to be my Y value, can be sold at $4 each. So if I go X and Y, $4, 50 tacos. I've got another one that says, oh, 120 tacos if they're $2 each. Again, that's X and Y, or that's dollars and number of tacos. What I have now is I have 2 points. I'm going to find the equation of the line in 2 points. I'm just going to use X and Y, and then we'll translate it to what the problem says. But I want a linear function, so I'm thinking Y equals MX plus B. Well, I need M and I need B. So let's look at M. Remember, M's the slope. That's the change in Y, Y2 minus Y1, over the change in X. So I say, oh, I go 120 minus 50, that's my change in Y, and then I do 2 minus 4. So I go 120 minus 50, that's 70. 2 minus 4 is negative 2, I get negative 35. What does that mean? Well, it'd be negative 35 over 1, which means I sell 35 fewer tacos every time the price goes up by 1. Okay? So my number of tacos go down at a more expensive price when I increase the price. So that's my slope. I have M equals negative 35. Now I have that, now I need to find B. Well, I'm going to use one of these points. Let's use, say, the 450 to plug in for x and y, because that's an x and y. I can plug in this one also. But let's see. So from y equals mx plus b, I'm going to get 50 equals m, negative 35, x, 4, plus b. And I'm trying to find my b value or my y-intercept. So let's see. I get 50 equals negative, what's that, 140? Plus b, add 140 to both sides. And I get 190 equals b, which would essentially mean if I'm not charging anything, I should be able to sell 190 tacos if they were free, b. So my x value in that case would be $0, would be 190. So plugging it all in again to y equals mx plus b, I would get y equals m, negative 35, times x plus b, 190. And now in terms of the problem, remember y was the number of tacos at $8. X was the number of dollars, D, and then 190 was my y-intercept, or my n-intercept in this case. But that's my function. If I wanted to find out the number at any price, I would plug that price in for D. If I wanted to know what the price was to sell a certain number of tacos, I'd plug that in for n of D, number of tacos, and then I could find out what price would give me that. Okay, so they're getting a little tricky. Work with them, practice. You'll get better and better the more you do.